Hello and welcome to Road Trip Records. I'm your host, Rosie Graham, a fourth-year American Studies student specialising in ethnomusicology and music history. I've just finished my dissertation on the intersections of music, race and violence at protest, and I'm finishing up my final semester. Growing up just underneath Manchester, I've inevitably become a massive music nerd and love getting to know about the music that has shaped people. Here on Road Trip Records, we aim to tap into some of the core characters of our department and really get to know their music minds. Today's episode is a special edition for the Sussex Festival of Ideas, an engaging and exciting programme of talks, activities and events from the 9th to the 12th of June, looking to see how vital media, arts and humanities are to our society and how they can offer hope for the future. To mark the launch of the festival, I'm joined by Chancellor of Sussex, Sanjeev Bhaskar, OBE. Chancellor of our university since 2009, Sanjeev is also a prominent actor, writer, presenter and comedian, and is currently playing D.I. Sunny Khan on ITV's Unforgotten, amidst a career of award-winning comedy and television roles. I'm excited to hear all about his music picks, so without further ado, let's get started. Sanjeev, hello and welcome to Road Trip Records.
Thank you very much, Rosie. What a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. I mean, it's so exciting to be speaking to the Chancellor, especially, after this year and everything we've been through this year with uni, not really being able to speak to people. So this is a really great way of having a chat, really.
Great. I'm looking forward to it. With some concern. You can ask me anything, by the way.
Oh, no holds barred. Okay. So just to get us started, what is your role of Chancellor? What do you do for the uni?
It's an honorary position, really, and it's mainly to represent the university out and about. But I suppose the main function is graduation, and I get to greet all the students who've graduated and do a generally kind of uninteresting and unfunny speech at the beginning, and generally slightly less interesting and less funny speech at the end. But the main thing is just being able to kind of greet and celebrate with the students on what is a fantastic achievement.
Exactly. I think this year it might be a little bit different. I'm not sure we're having a graduation, but hopefully there'll still be some celebration in the future and we can get back to our graduations.
I hope so. I mean, it's been last year and this year that we've not had the ceremonies themselves, which doesn't make the achievements any less brilliant and incredible and amazing. It's just that little bit at the end when we can all celebrate together. But I have, as I did last year, will be celebrating in absentia.
Oh, me too. I hope so. I hope we can get back to it next year as well. So tell us a bit about what uni meant to you. I read that you did marketing, but obviously with your career now, how does that happen? How do you go from marketing and were you involved in the arts at uni, or was that something that came after?
Well, I was always interested in communication, I think, and communicating thoughts, ideas, and hearing thoughts and ideas. And the arts was a natural place, I think, for all of that to happen. So I was interested in that since, to be honest, as far back as I can remember, actually. So I was kind of a real TV addict when I was a kid, loved films, loved music, loved speeches, loved literature, and so always wanted to be involved. But I kind of grew up at a time and in a culture where those things were considered hobbies. And I was very much encouraged to kind of go and get a proper job, which I still haven't got. So in a way, I think my parents wanted me to do medicine. I wanted to act and write. And so obviously somewhere along the line, I thought marketing was the exact midpoint between acting and medicine. And so I kind of went down that path. I didn't do any drama at school. I didn't take part in any productions, didn't do GCSE drama.
Wow.
And really, it's when I got to university, they had a drama society, which I went along to have a look at and see what they did, and joined that. And these were all the people who were studying, every discipline except anything kind of artistic and creative, who were getting together kind of, once or twice a week to put on a production. And so I joined in with that. And I remember thinking then, if I'm not better than these people who really don't want to do it for a living, then maybe I should reconsider this slightly bizarre dream of mine. Um, Patently, as as has been evidenced, I was obviously way better than they were. But that's where I first got a chance to be on stage and to write things. And then, because I'd done a business degree with marketing, I went into that area as a profession. And then, still always wanting to write and act and looking on with some envy with all these people. I remember well, this is not a path that anyone should ever tread, but I ended up in litigation with the last company I worked for, and I took them to court for breach of contract.
Oh my
And
goodness.
yeah, it's all very dramatic, although very boring because it's just letters to lawyers and things like that. But I then couldn't get a job for about 2 years whilst this litigation was running through, and I volunteered at a local hospital for 2 nights a week. Did that for a couple of years. But also there was a friend of mine from university called Nitin Sawhney, who I'd done things with at university. We'd sort of reviews and things like that. So we'd just the two of us would combine comedy and music and just play in the student union bar, really. And I got in touch with him and I said, look, you're sitting around doing nothing, and so am I. Should we just hang out and just come up with stuff and just be fun? And we did, and then thought, well, should we just put it on somewhere? Because there was nobody at that time reflecting our experiences of being both British and Asian. And so we thought, okay, well, let's do that. We can use that as our sort of platform on which to do other things. So we would do things that were culturally specific to us, but then also do impressions and then do some rock and roll songs and sing a song in Italian or wherever and whatever direction we wanted to go in. And we were doing one of those shows, and a couple of producers from the BBC turned up and said, we're thinking of doing a sketch show, and this is kind of what we're looking for. Are you interested? And so it
Just
was a
by chance.
life-changing moment. Yeah, completely. I mean, it's a weird thing with fate, because I think it might have been Oprah Winfrey actually who said that luck is preparation plus opportunity. The opportunities can come along, and if you're not
Right.
prepared, you can't take them. And
That's very
conversely,
true.
if you're prepared and you don't recognize the opportunity, then that can pass you by as well. So, I'm very, very aware of how fortunate I was to be friends with Nitin, who's now a composer for films, and he's played at the Albert Hall, and he's won an Ivor Novello, and he's just the genius that he always was. So it was incredibly fortunate that I met him, but also, meeting him alone wouldn't have, meant anything unless we'd both decided that we were actually going to do something. So I think it was a combination of that. The doing was the thing that made those opportunities then arrive and be clearer.
Definitely. And I think that's such an interesting way you describe it about uni. You were saying about drama, everyone's coming from different degrees, everyone's coming from different situations, backgrounds, specifically areas of the country. But I think something really unique, especially what we do at Sussex and with this podcast actually, is we're all from completely different areas. I do American studies, so not particularly artistic until I made it artistic, and I chose to take those avenues. So yeah, I completely get what you're saying there. It's kind of like an amalgamation at uni.
The one thing that I love about university, and university isn't for everyone, it doesn't suit everybody, but the one thing that I think is amazing about it is that it's the only time in your life that you're surrounded by as many people of around your age from as diverse a set of backgrounds as you'll ever experience. And the power of diversity is really diversity of ideas. So I talk to people in companies sometimes, and I say, look, you can have 12 people of different experiences, different backgrounds, different genders, different political outlooks, and you've got 12 completely different ideas that you can choose from, as opposed to having 12 people who have exactly the same idea, which is an incredibly static position to be in. And I think that's true whether it's commerce or whether it's socializing. I mean, there's nothing more exciting for me than to be within a group of people who don't have the experiences that I have.
Completely.
I can tell them about mine. And, you know, the thing I love about creativity, Rosie, is that you and I together could come up with an idea that I could never have come up with on my own.
Right.
And that to me is magical.
I think so too. And I think that's a really great thing of having these conversations with you, and some of the conversations that I've been doing on this podcast is I'm just having these really in-depth just thoughts about our current situation, about doing things over a podcast, about the really like mundane things of being at uni and learning at uni in a pandemic that wouldn't have happened had I not sat down to have a chat with someone. And it's such a great way to take time out of my day to like engage in different people's opinions, and I'm really enjoying it. It's been a really great way to get involved. But I really enjoyed listening to you on Tracks of My Life with Ken Bruce the other day. And then I also went back and found your Desert Island Discs, because obviously this is very much like Desert Island Discs. And it's really clear that music is something that you've used throughout your life to either pinpoint moments or is sentimental and carries with you. Would you say you have a tight relationship with music? Do you listen to music often? Or I see a guitar behind you, for starters.
Yeah, it's only the top half of a guitar. There's nothing at the bottom of it.
It's just the fretboard.
Yeah, I should have had the top of a euphonium or something there as well. Yeah, I remember asking Melvin Bragg, who's presented arts shows in Britain for 40 years now, I think 50 years maybe. I asked him once what he thought the best art was. And he said it's music, because he said music can cross boundaries in a way that no other art form can.
So malleable when you think of it like that as well.
Totally.
Before we move on to your song choices, I have to mention Unforgotten and and just the incredible success, and it's just been recommissioned again. We were wondering, I was speaking about this with Emma before, what's it like returning to a character? Because this is something you've done for a while now, and then going back into a character. Is it refreshing to really lean into that role?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's you're beginning, you grow with the character in a way. So, by the fourth season, I just knew the character, much better than I knew that character in the first season. And at a kickoff point, you're introducing a character to an audience with no history and no background. So you kind of invent that yourself a little bit, and then it's the space between you and the other actors that gives the audience a chance to know who you are. And so by season 4, they know you a bit better as well. So you don't have to do as much either direct or indirect exposition about the character to explain who the character is or why the character is doing something. You kind of show it first, and then the audience will understand. And it's the same for me when I read the script. So yeah, it's interesting also because we don't really know that much about my character Sonny. So there's a lot of areas to explore. You can, the writer and me and the audience can put Sonny, the character I play, into a new situation with all of us wondering how he's going to react.
Oh, that's so fun.
That's an interesting place to be. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so we're heading on this road trip. The idea of an American road trip is a bit of an iconograph of my studies. So I do American studies, and it's this big idea of the open road, the wide open road through these deserts of America. And they're so often accompanied with a soundtrack. And everybody always goes for, country and blues or Johnny Cash, that kind of thing. So I think it's really great to let somebody set up their own road trip. So if you were to leave on a road trip, set the scene. Anywhere you wanted to go specifically? Would you be alone? Would there be someone with you? What's the vibe?
What would you like first? Would you like the vibe? Would you like where it is?
Location first, please.
Okay, location first. So I kind of ummed and ahed a lot about this because initially I thought I'll pick places I haven't been to. And so first of all, I thought New Orleans to San Francisco would be a really interesting trip. But that is kind of about 4 days.
Yeah.
And then I thought of something which is a bit more contained, which was the Pacific Highway. So, or part of it. So from San Diego up to San Francisco.
Are you alone? Is there anyone with you in the car?
So first of all, it's not a car, it's an RV. I thought if you're going to do an American road trip, then you need an RV for it,
In
really.
style.
Well, the thing is that when I thought about a car, I thought, and this is just me being kind of uber practical, was just me hiring a car, and it'll be a Nissan or something, which isn't particularly sexy, because you think, oh, I'll go for the open top car, and
Yeah.
the RV is great because sometimes you need the loo, and so RV is the vehicle. And I really ummed and ahed about who I would go with, and I'm going to choose a friend of mine who passed away really young, and he passed away when he was 39, called Sharrett. And I'd written a lot of the comedy stuff I'd written with him. He was a really close friend. We would go on holiday together, and really he would be the perfect person for me to have on my road trips. I'm going to have him because he had a wider kind of range of music than me. We obviously had a similar sense of humor, and I kind of learnt a lot from him. And I think he kind of played a huge part in shaping who I am, certainly creatively, but also outside of that. So I'm going to choose him.
Okay, so this road trip is all about him and his memory and the light that he brought, and he now brings on this road trip with you, which is a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very easy and natural to look back at people who are no longer with us with a degree of sadness and longing and the rest of it. And so in a way, it keeps him real and alive and present,
and in
and
such a great way.
Yeah, and it'd be fun.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the best bit of this whole chat, is where I get to talk to you about what music you would play. So start us off with your first song. A great choice.
Yes. Well, the main reason I chose this, apart from I really love the song, and as soon as it comes on, I want to kind of move around, is that it is the song that is played before graduation starts. And so at the graduation ceremonies, all the sort of faculty members and various professors and vice chancellor and I line up outside, waiting for the fanfare to start, with which we kind of enter the room in our robes and process up to the stage. But before that's played, the Justin Timberlake song is played. And there has been not one time when I haven't been in my robes, holding my mortarboard and my file with my speech in it, that I haven't danced.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Every single time. And occasionally, if it's a particularly short procession, then we end up waiting inside the hall while that song is still going on, and I keep dancing. So it's kind of, it's a great, and I think particularly for the start of a road trip, you want up music, you want stuff that's kind of really up. And so it's really up, and it reminds me of graduation.
That's a great one. So happy and lively. And I wish we could dance at graduation this year, but maybe next year. And then taking things on a similar bright, happy note, we have A Little Less Conversation by Elvis Presley is your next song. What a track.
I'm a huge Elvis fan. I'm a huge Beatles fan. So trying to pick 4 songs was like getting a paper cut and somebody putting lemon juice on it. I mean, it's really, really hard.
So nice and easy then.
Yeah, thanks. Honestly, I thought Desert Island Discs was hard with 8 and 4. But again, it's a really up song, and especially in America, Elvis is, firstly an American icon, then he's a youth icon, and then he's a world icon. But I kind of really loved Elvis again since I was a kid, and I didn't know what he looked like, so I heard his voice first, and there was a vulnerability to his voice that I really loved. And then years later I saw him, and I thought he was just the most beautiful man I'd ever seen in my life.
And it was very fair.
I did kind of think, that voice and him, and I thought, but of course you look like that. I mean, of course you're going to look like that. Like,
wouldn't expect any different.
So that was, and that particular, the remix of A Little Less Conversation, because it was a song that was used in one of the many not so good Elvis films. but the remix was done for an advert initially. And Terry Gilliam, who's part of the Monty Python team, used that song first. And Terry's a friend of mine. And so I got to ask him, and he's a huge Elvis fan as well, except, you know,
Right.
he heard Elvis when Elvis first came out in 1956. So it's there's lots of confluences on that particular song. It's Elvis, Terry Gilliam, and the Pythons, who I kind of adored. And again, it's up energy, and you know, the road trip is underway.
Road trip is proper underway, and it's perfect for that American highway sunshine. And then obviously you were saying you loved Elvis Presley and the Beatles too, and your next track is Hey Jude by the Beatles. And I think you've really chosen a great anthem there. These are all such great anthems, such big songs to fill a highway, realistically.
Also, I thought there is a point, because, you know, I think constantly up music, and there, you know, there are so many songs that I think would have been perfect. Loads by Stevie Wonder, loads of Motown records would have been great. But I wanted one that was a sing-along, and it's a little calmer than the others. It's not up, and there is a point on a road trip where, you know, you want to put on a song that everyone knows and everyone can sing along to. So that's why I picked Hey Jude. And as you say, you know, I love the Beatles as well from as far back as I can remember. And in my slightly bizarre life, I got to meet three of them. And Paul McCartney's a genius. And
entirely.
And so, you know, to have a song by him and by my favorite band, and one that everyone knows, and even if you don't know all the lyrics, you know, the bit at the end, na 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 na, Hey Jude. I mean, you know, everyone can join in with that.
I think this is the original sing-along song. I remember I had three sisters. We'd all sing along to the back of this, in the back of the car. So definitely a sing-along track, and that is very important on a road trip to have a sing-along track. Your last song is Waters of March by Suzanne McCorkle. And I remember listening to your tracks, and I was like, I don't know if I know this one. And as soon as I heard the singing, I was like, of course I know this song. The standard, of course I know this song. But I'd never heard this version before by Suzanne McCorkle. So tell us what this means to you.
Well, this is the one song that is consistent along all the choices I've made. So it was my Desert Island Disc song. It was my Tracks of My Years song, and it's here. And I think, again, you want that wind down song towards the end of the day or the end of your trip. And I think it's one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard. And I think I mean, originally it was a Brazilian song that was translated into English. And it's really a list. It's a list of things that make up life, and of detail, of light things and dark things, and happy and sad and reflective. And all of that is life. And in a way, you know, people think or approach life sometimes, I feel, as a series of destinations. You know, you've got to get to this point, and then you've got to get to this point, and then you've got to get to this point. And actually, the beauty, I think, of life is all that stuff in between.
This is reminding me of what you said before about life has no meaning unless you create it and you put that meaning in it itself. And I also think through coronavirus, when we've all been stripped back to basics, back to everything we know, with nothing open, no shops, no flights, nothing like that, it's been a great way to acknowledge those little bits and bobs as we go along. And it's meant specifically at uni to love things like these chats we get to have, or to read that extra chapter because I've got the time now that I didn't have before, or to go on that walk with a friend off my course. So those little bits and bobs that build up your uni experience are just gold dust when it comes to the end of it, and it comes to graduation.
I remember when I left university, I remember thinking then that what I'd gained from that experience was so much more than the piece of paper at the end. You know, it was it's people I met, certainly. It was all those things about things like you know, house sharing, and you know, asking for the 5 others for the contribution to the sugar that I'd bought, someone who'd eaten my egg. All of that stuff is real world stuff, and it's negotiation which we have to do all the time.
Yeah.
And so, one of the difficulties, I think, particularly over the last year, has been, I think there have been advantages to it, and there have been huge disadvantages, particularly for people in work, then being out of work, worrying about money, worrying about their health, all of that stuff. But on the flip side of it, people have been forced to step off that hamster wheel. And
slow down.
And most people are not used to it, which is why it can feel so kind of juddering. But actually, to step back and also realize how important it is to communicate.
I completely agree, and I think these little waters of March, as I'll call it now, these little bits and bobs that have been popping up have really solidified my final year. I mean, it's my last year at uni, and this is I haven't been in person, haven't seen any of these of my friends, of my tutors that I know are working so hard from home. But as you said, if we're finding little bits of enjoyment and little bits of therapy in going outside, speaking to a friend, or as I do quite often, eating fish and chips and staring at the sea, that's one step for myself that maybe I wouldn't have taken in my second year when I was rushed off my feet.
Well, also, Rosie, I'd add that nothing needs to be wasted. All of these things can come back and help you in a way that it's impossible to recognize now. And it's I know that because there was something I dreamt of doing as a kid, and I couldn't see any way of doing it for a living, and now I have been, and so I could not have foreseen that. But all the time that I spent while I wanted to do this, and watched documentaries and read books and talked to people about it and had real life experiences, have all fed into what I've done for a living. And so none of that is wasted. And it's and I feel sad for those people at university over the last year, particularly, who haven't had the experience that university can give you. But it will have given you something else. And at the end of the day, you can either focus on, what you've got or what you haven't got. So for instance, I'll give you an example. I don't really use the word fail when applying to myself anymore. And I can't fail. I've decided I can't fail. So no, it's not, because what I've replaced it with is learn. So I can either succeed or learn.
We can learn.
Those are the two states for me. It's kind of, it's not succeed and fail. It's kind of, I'll learn something from it, So I hope that, difficult though this last year has been enormously for students, and not having had that experience, I hope they can keep in mind that they will have gained other things. They just don't know it yet.
They just don't know it yet. And it's there, but you just can't see it. Do you think that keeping our media, arts and humanities is important? Do you think that's something that can contribute to society? Because I do.
I don't think it's important. I think it's essential. I think that it's one of the things that within schools, one of the curriculums that get cut first are arts and humanities. And it is the biggest folly, because the thing is that, in that left-right brain thing, where one side is logic and one side is kind of abstract, the abstract side of one's head is the bit of the head that comes up with the ideas. So, it took that side of the head for someone to say, I wonder what it would be like to get to the moon. Engineers created the spaceships and the technology to do it, but the idea came from a creative side of the head. So, every innovation in history was a creative spark. I'm
really glad you said that, because as a graduate, I think I needed to hear that right now.
Were you really expecting me to say, nah,
we don't
everyone should do science, just science, science and PE.
God, it'd be terrible. It would last 5 minutes. Sanjeev, it's been an absolute honour speaking with you this afternoon, and it's been so interesting to hear about your songs, and we'll upload them all to a playlist so everyone can listen along with you. But thank you very much for joining us today.
Huge pleasure. Thank you for letting me hang out with you.
This has been an MAH production. hosted and produced by Rosie Graham, edited by Imogen Johnston, music by Torqueto. With an additional thanks to Mary Carell, Jessica Horn, the Sussex Festival of Ideas, and Laura McDermott for allowing us to record at the Attenborough Centre for the Creative Arts.